Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since I have been online, and I know that I have this pattern where I start making videos again and then I do like 5 or 6 of them and then I disappear. And that's just kind of how my life is right now. I work full time, so I don't always have time to do videos, and I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things again. I have this very unique time right now where I'm actually able to put out content, so I am going to try my best to take advantage of it and get you guys all the goodies when it comes to INFJ stuff. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into today's video because I am really excited about it. I have been trying to come up with a curated list of books for INFJs because I just recently realized how many books I've read in my life, and I feel like I have a very decent coverage of things that would really satisfy an INFJ's soul. To me, this reading in general is one of the best medicines for this very complex personality type. Quick disclaimer on this is that I'm not necessarily advocating for every book that I have as I'm like looking at the large pile of books around me. I just wanted to prepare you because some of these are very challenging, and I tried to throw in some that are kind of lighter and fun. But yeah, I'm not advocating for every idea that I'm presenting. It's just stuff that I think an INFJ would enjoy. All right, so the first set of books I have are some classics that I find just so deep and nourishing and rich. A couple of these are like super long. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Gosh, I like really splurged on some of these books. They have like the nice kind of gold binding because if it's a classic, I want it to be like nice. So these are very much like bookshelf kind of materials. Anyway, Anna Karenina, this one I read back in April. I want to say it took me a couple of months because it is very thick. I think it's about 1,000 pages. What I like about Anna Karenina and why I think an INFJ would like it is that Leo Tolstoy is like a really excellent kind of observational kind of guy. Anna Karenina is like a tragic love story, but you can feel the complexity and philosophical thought and all of the ideas that Tolstoy chewed on to write this book. And it is dense, but it's also kind of intriguing and dramatic at the same time. Tolstoy was very political, and he had a very subtle way that he was able to portray his ideas. I think INFJs have a hard time. We have a lot of ideas and thoughts, but we don't like to lecture and preach at people. That's just not really our style. We prefer more evocative kind of styles of art, things that will evoke realizations out of people and get them to see something in a way that they were able to arrive at themselves. So Leo Tolstoy was like that. He really liked just very kind of advanced narratives that were layered with symbolism and dark kind of societal critiques. I think this book is just really good. I was like sad when it was over. There's so much existentialism inside of it as well. And I think any INFJ would really love dissecting a lot of the characters. Anyway, that really excellent classic. The next couple that I have are, and I might like pronounce some names wrong, you guys. I did not do like enough research before this about how to pronounce things. So please be merciful in the comments. But we have the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This one also just so good, so rich, so existential. I love all the characters in here. I think you can really feel when a writer has like a deep, soulful authenticity that just kind of gets imbued into these characters because they don't feel forced in any way. And I think this is one of the few books that actually surprises me from time to time. Like if you're an INFJ and you catch all of the patterns and storytelling patterns, you probably watch like a movie and you immediately know how it's going to end. And for this book, I did not know a lot of the twists and turns that happened throughout it. So I just thought it was really good. Same with Crime and Punishment. I'm not going to go too in detail here about this one, but also by Fyodor Dostoevsky. He's just such a incredible person when it comes to the complexity of morality and all of these kind of deeper, richer philosophical things that we like as INFJs. All right, next stack of books. We have some great selection of Carl Jung books. I do not know how to pronounce Carl Jung's name, and this like drives me crazy. I've seen a lot of professors even change how they say his name. So can we just like call him Carl maybe for this video? Anyway, for those of you who don't know, Carl, he was like the primary synthesizer of how we came up with personality typing. He's somebody who took a whole bunch of ideas out there from anywhere from like kind of this esoteric, almost occult stuff to modern analytical psychology and merged them into a lot of different theories. And ultimately, that's how we arrived at MBTI. So anyway, just research that kind of stuff on your own. How did personality typing become a thing? Carl Jung's name will probably be in there at some point. Cognitive functions, look it up. Anyway, I think it's good to study this guy because he is probably the most introvert of the introverts with a complex inner world. Very kind of eclectic kind of guy when it came to how he studied things. So the books that I have recommended are Man and His Symbols. I think this one was intended to be more general audience. It also has like a lot of his predecessors, and they're able to simplify things quite a bit. He talks about the shadow, the unconscious, all of this inner world kind of territory. He maps it out. I think it's good if you just kind of want his own words said by him. So this one's good. The next one is Jung's Map of the Soul by Murray Stein. This one I think is a little more general audience as well, and it just has everything in there. Also a decently short book. It's about like 220 pages or so. So this is like a good intro to all of that stuff if you don't want to get into like the nitty gritty details. I also have on here, and I questioned doing it, but I read the Red Book. I think I read this like 3 years ago or so, and then I had to revisit it because I just didn't really understand what I was reading the first time that I read it. I think the best way to read the Red Book, just so you know, it's kind of like his, almost like a dream journal. Again, probably research this on your own, but like you should read it like it's a fiction. Like this is a guy who is dissecting his own dreams. And if you're somebody who has like a rich dream life and you're interested in understanding the symbolism, some of those deeper kind of soulful meanings that you might wake up one night and just be like, wow, that was like a really profound dream. Maybe you also have a rich imagination. Then this is a good book to read. It's almost like an expert dissecting his own dream life. And I would just read it like it's a fiction though, because it's kind of challenging to understand where he's really getting at with a lot of it. So anyway, these are the 3 books that I would recommend for Carl Jung. All right, next big stack of books we have is philosophy. This one I am really, I don't know. It's just, there's so much here. The big thing about INFJs is that we are always asking the question, why? We are deeply existential. I think if you are somebody who resonates with this personality type, you're probably also existentially gifted. Like you can actually read really complex ethical types of books and understand them deeply. Anyway, I feel like in my life, I go out into the world and I will get some solid life experience. And then I feel like I have to retreat into my cave and just kind of dissect those experiences and unravel them at their deepest core. Why did that happen? Why did this person act like that? Especially involving the people in my life. And I just like to understand society at large. So philosophy, I think, is just a really good subject to dive into. The first book that I read, just to get into this entire body of works, I am not a philosophy major, so I don't know. I had no idea how to tackle it. The first book that I read is Sophie's World. This one is actually, I think, for teenagers or something, but it just does a really good job going across all of history, all of philosophy from the Greeks into modern day. Just kind of gives you a rundown. It's kind of textbookish, but it'll give you an overview. And I would say for anybody that's new at philosophy, Sophie's World is a good one. The next book that I read is Greek philosophy. So I read Greatest Greek Philosophers. Again, a nice gold cover on this one. I read The Republic, The Enchiridion. I also read Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. All of those I thought were just so soothing to my soul. I don't like, that's the word that I would use, because I feel like if you're living in this world, sometimes not having like clear principles that you need in your life to like govern how you act and behave, sometimes it just like really wears on you, because you see this world, it's so insane. People normalize crazy things. People don't seem to have like clear discernment in the way that they perceive reality. I don't even know how to put it into words, but these types of books give you those words. I really loved Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. That one especially, I felt like just really gave me a lot of clarity about virtues and vices. And in a world that's like habituated in vices, a lot of people can't even recognize virtue. I don't know. There's just something about the way that Aristotle wrote that really, really like sunk in deep into me. So again, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, all of those guys I think would be excellent to study. I also went into like Nietzsche. Let's see. So I have like Beyond Good and Evil here, just kind of a classic Nietzsche book. If you're an INFJ, you probably see a lot of complexity in morality, and maybe be a little careful with his books because I think he also went crazy. So again, keep that in mind. I also read things that are in our modern day, like the postmodern condition. And then we also have Simulacra and Simulation. These are very hard books, and I don't know that I'm necessarily recommending them, but I think if you want to dive deep into the complexity of reality, then maybe try these out. And we are already close to 15 minutes over here, so I can hardly believe it. I still have a massive stack of books. I might just rapid fire them and just to kind of tell you briefly what I like about each one. But the next stack that I had is religious books. I spent a lot of time trying to understand all of the major world religions. And there's actually a book, The Major World Religions, I'll put the title up, that I read. I think this one's really good. It just kind of encapsulates everything if you want kind of a generalized overview of them. I read the Bible, the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the Upanishads, several others. So I like to get into the primary source material. I don't really like to have like other people kind of telling me what they think it's about. I like, once again, like very evocative kind of texts. And I feel like religious texts has that quality where it's like you read something multiple times and it'll speak into your life in different ways. I think it's good for INFJs to study this sort of thing because weirdly, I think the thing that we're really good at is studying topics that most people can't really talk about. Religion and politics, right? Social dynamics. Why do we believe certain things? Anytime you have topics like that, I think people often come into them with very strong kind of heavy biases and opinions or maybe baggage into these spaces. And I think INFJs kind of offer a very therapeutic kind of presence when it comes to dissecting these sorts of things. The energy that we bring into anything really is one that's very open, very curious, and also just connecting. We like to connect with people no matter what kind of biases they might have inside of them. There's a lot of healing that I think comes with that. So I think it's important to get into religious texts and kind of dissect the world and the whys behind things from that framework as well. All right, let's keep moving because I just kind of want to rapid fire a lot of these. The next book that I have is called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. This is by, I can't pronounce his name, John Koenig. I think he did a TED Talk and about how he came up with this book, but it's just a bunch of words that are kind of obscure. And if you're an INFJ, you probably have a hard time trying to articulate the emotions that you're feeling. And this is just an amazing book when it comes to the most complex and kind of weird emotions that you might have. Definitely worth just like sitting down and reading sometime. Yeah. So the next one that I have is called Emotional Design. And I think I like this book because it talks mostly about technology. So my background is engineering, and I just like to understand like why do some objects kind of stick out to us as being very user-friendly and we enjoy using them. And others are just like, gosh, I hate that thing. This one's like a kind of a good psychological study. Maybe if you are actually like an engineer or some kind of designer, I think this is a really good one to read. I hope I'm not talking too fast in this video because I just have so many things to go over. I'm trying to like fit it all in. I will slow down my speech if I am talking too fast. The next set of books that I have are very esoteric, kind of mystical books. I think if you're somebody who has introverted intuition as your primary cognitive function, you don't know what that means, look it up. That is the primary cognitive function for INFJs. Sometimes you feel like you're pretty mystical, like you see things like synchronicities more than other people. You see patterns, you see connections. I like to study intuition. So I think also from a mystical perspective, one book that I read is called From Intellect to Intuition. This is by Alice Bailey. It's a very kind of occult book. It talks about meditation and things of that nature. But I just love the language in here. It talks about consciousness and moving from like just kind of a purely kind of knowledge base to like thinking from your heart, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's a different type of intuition. I'll put like the primary definition of intuition in this book. But I think it's cool to study intuition if that's like how you walk through this world. So taking in a variety of perspectives, even mystical or kind of esoteric ones. So this was a great book. The next book that I read is called Practical Mysticism by Evelyn Underhill. And she has like a bigger book, but this one's only like 100 pages or so. Yeah, it's like a very thin book, but it's pretty advanced, I think. Like the way that she writes about mysticism in general it'll appeal to you if you're an intellectual, I think. I hate this kind of modern day where mysticism is looped in with all this kind of like hippie guru people that, I don't know, they're not really seen as rational and intelligent. I think that Evelyn does a really good job at making this a little more grounded in the intellect and trying to understand it. So another book that I read, I was questioning if I should put it in here, but I read New Age Religion and Western Culture. Again, kind of like the New Age kind of spiritual stuff. I wanted to understand it a little more. Like if you're somebody who classifies as spiritual but not religious, but you don't really understand what the New Age is just because it's such a broad kind of category of spirituality. I think this one does a really good academic deep dive into what constitutes that set of beliefs. I tend to kind of have an aversion to New Age, but I didn't really know what that meant. So this is just kind of a good definition of what that is. But once again, it's like a very thick book. If you're somebody who is actually interested in understanding like spirituality and stuff like that, this might be a good thing to read. All right, another big stack. And you guys probably think I have no life because I've read so much, but also I kind of don't have a life because I'm an INFJ. I just like sit in my room all day and think and ponder this reality. And that is the truth. Anyway, I have a big stack here and I'm just going to broadly classify them as like self-development and psychology books. So the first one that I have is The Hero with 1,000 Faces. This is Joseph Campbell. And I feel like this is something that you should read if you're really into archetypes and kind of understanding storylines and storytelling in general. Very good. Another one I have is Dabrowski's Theory of Positive Disintegration. This one I think is such a relief if you're somebody who might be gifted and also like you're trying to adapt to an insane world, but you can see things. You're more conscious. You're walking through this world in a conscious way. Something that might deeply bother you doesn't seem to faze somebody else. It just talks about how to like evolve consciously and what does it mean to evolve as well. Like I think most people kind of end up in these very comfortable kind of jobs and marriages, and we call that being evolved. But what does it actually mean to evolve spiritually and evolve in your integrity and stuff like that? I think this is an excellent book. Next is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. This one's, I think, primarily for men and like their psychological development. But I actually really liked reading it as a woman. I think it helps me understand men better. I think also we kind of, every person has these archetypes within themselves as well. And I don't know if there's actually a female version of this book. Anyway, I have a different book for that. But yeah, I just thought it was like a really good kind of self-development book. The next one that I have is The Road Less Traveled. This one is by M. Scott Peck. It's honestly been a long time since I've read it, and I don't really remember what it was about, but I think the name says a lot, right? The Road Less Traveled. I don't even remember. I think I read this like 5 years ago. I can't. Yeah, but I'm at a point too where I've like read so much that everything's kind of blending together. I don't really remember what each book is about. So anyway, if you're somebody who is interested in this psychology book, go for it. The next book that I have is The Pregnant Virgin. This is by Marion Woodman. This one I read, I think, I want to say 3 years ago. It's very niche. It just talks about like psychological development, Jung's kind of archetypal series. It's a pretty short book as well. It's about 180-ish pages. Again, very potent, actually. Like when you're in something of a chrysalis phase, like you're going through transformation, you've left old patterns behind and you're about to start a new kind of phase of life. I think this is a really good book. I think there were so many things in here that just resonated with me. Like every woman probably resonates with something in here. So yeah, another good one. Let's see. And then the last two of the stack, we have The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. And then we also have The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So I think these two have like nothing to do with each other, but a good kind of psychological study of love in general. And then just kind of a proverbial type of book about, it's just very philosophical. This is, again, another classic. So, all right, I promise we are almost done. I only have 4 books left. So the next author that I want to introduce is Ken Wilber. This guy is like a transpersonal psychology guy. Again, probably look up a lot of these words that I'm using. I don't know where you guys are at in your own kind of psychology studies. Anyway, first book is Integral Psychology. This is pretty advanced. It's consciousness, spirits, psychology, therapy, probably everything an INFJ would love. What I like about Ken Wilber is that he is able to put a framework into a bunch of different things. This is hard for me to describe, but if you're an INFJ, you probably don't really, you're probably not even on like the same framework as most people. Like to me, the words like liberal or conservative or any type of like kind of broad categorization doesn't really, like I really have to dig into that and try to figure out what that person is talking about. And I just feel like I'm on a completely different kind of set of frameworks. Anyway, I like integral psychology because he talks about the evolution of consciousness. And that is its own kind of framework, right? I'm honestly going to have to reread this again because it's been a while. I think it was 2 years ago that I read this one. But yeah, I'm just so blown away by the way that he was able to synthesize a bunch of frameworks into a kind of solidary framework. Another one that I read, which is also just kind of about consciousness and things of that nature, was The Grand Biocentric Design. This one has more physics in it, if that's your thing. So this one's by Robert Lanza. I'm not saying that all of these things are true, right? Like I don't really know, but I like to listen to, I think, physics, philosophy, and psychology. Those are like the 3 realms that I think any sort of INFJ or person who kind of resonates with this personality type would really like. So yeah, The Grand Biocentric Design, it was just kind of a unique universal theory about the universe. So I have so much nonfiction here, and I wanted to do nonfiction mostly because I think that's where I've devoted a lot of time. I think especially starting in like 2020 and 2021, I just read a lot because we were all locked in. I think that was kind of like the introvert's haven for a while. And I had all this stuff that I wanted to dissect, and that was just a time of my life where I got very existential. So I read a lot of nonfiction. But I do have one fiction book in here. This one I read, I think it was last year or a year and a half ago or something. But it's Circe by Madeline Miller. I like it because the main character in here, this is like a mythology. It gets into, I think, Greek mythology. And Circe is like kind of this background character in the Odyssey. And it talks about being an outsider. Anybody who feels like an outsider, like an intelligent outsider, then this book would really resonate. Yeah, I thought it's like a New York Times bestseller. I just thought it was really good. So I don't want to say too much about it without giving away information. I feel like I'm rambling a lot right now already. So anyway, a good one for INFJs. All right, I lied. I have one more book, and that book is Quiet by Susan Cain. If you have not read this book, then I don't know why you're trying to torture yourself in this world. It is probably the best sort of general audience kind of book that I've read that just really gets into the heart of what it's like to be an introvert and really appreciate your gifts. And it was just such a refreshing read when I read it. Back when I was like in corporate America, trying to become somebody who was more outspoken and extroverted, and that's just not who I am. And it helped me embrace a lot more of my inherent kind of qualities as an introvert. So Quiet by Susan Cain, definitely read it if you haven't read it yet. It is just so good. All right, that was a lot of books, and I am really exhausted now. Yeah, okay. Drop in the comments what you guys think are good books for INFJs to read, whatever your favorites are. I'm sure that there are a lot of them that I have missed and not covered. I am also hoping to do more videos here soon. For those of you who have noticed, I have a new microphone, which is awesome. So my old beat up one won't be getting any more abuse from me. So anyway, drop in the comments your guys' books, and I am hoping to put more videos out here soon. We'll see how that goes, but I am hopefully going to make this more of a regular thing. So anyway, see you all next time, and yeah,